Hey everyone, I'm so glad that you're here. Today we're going to talk about understanding modern hybrid work and balancing security and employee experience. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Denis O'Shea, product innovation and value creation expert, and I'll be your host. And today I have a very special guest. Hey Dennis,
Hey, Addy, how you doing?
I'm good. Denis O'Shea is the founder of Mobile Mentor. Now we can start. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and ask questions. So let's start. I know that you've been doing research on modern hybrid work. Could you tell us a bit about that?
I can, of course. I was really curious to understand what's actually happening in the workforce as we come out of this pandemic.
Right.
And it's amazing how much has changed in 2 short years. And if you think about the way people used to work before the pandemic, for about 20 years, the pattern was the same. We drove to work, we went into work, we logged onto a machine or a computer that was provided by our employer. We worked there, we logged off, we went home. Not much change in those 20 years compared to how much changed in the last 2 years. And so
Yeah.
I was really curious, and my company was really curious to understand how are people actually working now? Because you got millions of people in their home offices with a
Right.
mixture of company devices and personal devices and all these applications and services. And we wanted to understand what's going on and why are companies being hacked and why is it so hard to retain your good employees when they feel like they can just go anywhere. And well, they
Yeah.
can't go anywhere. They stay in the home office, but they get a new
They,
laptop and they work for a
they,
new company.
yeah,
And
right.
we wanted to understand what's going on. What are the dynamics in this post pandemic modern hybrid workforce? So we did a
Yeah.
big study to understand what's happening. And when we thought
Yeah.
we could predict some of the things, but we got some big shocks.
Wow. And it was maybe in the US?
It was in the US and in Australia. We decided to pick those two markets because they're geographically quite different. We knew there would be some overlap, some similarities, but some differences. And we intend to repeat the research every year for the next 4 years.
Wow. And
And so
what
we're,
has changed? So tell me what was the most surprising thing for you?
I guess the most surprising thing for us was the attitude that people have towards security. The study focused on four industries that are regulated. So healthcare, education, government, and finance. And those industries are heavily regulated because the people who work in those industries have a duty, they have an obligation to protect something, either patient information or
Yeah.
student information or citizen information or client financial records.
Yeah.
And we found that people in those industries, in spite of the fact that they're heavily regulated, they put their personal privacy way ahead of company security. One of the
Yeah.
very simple questions we asked was,
Yeah.
what's more important to you, your personal privacy or your organization security? And it was about 80-20. 80% of
Wow.
people say, my personal privacy is more important to me than anything else. Yeah, in
Yeah,
that realm.
but does it mean that they're securing their personal information better? Like today with social and everything, they share their information anywhere, right? So
Well, that's one of the crazy dichotomies or paradoxes in this that we have not reconciled because we did the research by generation. So we looked at Gen Z, so the very young generation who just entered the workforce in the last couple of years, right? So they're
yeah,
between
yeah,
21 and 23 years old. And I'll
yeah,
come
yeah,
back to them because there's a lot to unpack around that
yeah,
generation. But we
yeah.
went right up to the baby boomer generation. And
Hmm.
when we studied people and we surveyed them around their attitudes to security and privacy, we found that young generation, Gen Z, they're quite different. They think differently to us, our generation, and other generations. And they don't really see or observe or notice security policies at work. So even
Yeah,
though a company might share their security policies with all employees, Gen Z kind of has a bag over their head and they don't see the policies. And even though
yeah,
they might receive the same security awareness training, they don't remember it, or they don't
yeah.
they don't recall they ever had that training.
and
But
and
if you
and it's not only for security, right? Or it's like we don't care about security. I think like privacy has no meaning for them. So or they always don't care what the organization is offering to them.
Well, they care about the organization, but the thing is, they do see privacy policies. And here's the amazing paradox. So they're almost blind to security awareness training and policies, but they're hyper aware and hypersensitive to anything to do with privacy, which is really interesting. So
Yeah.
there's a big lesson in this for company leaders, in that if we want to communicate to that generation, it's best we stop talking about security, because people just glaze over it. They get fatigued when they hear security messaging. If we talk about privacy, we get their attention. So
I
if we
see.
say we're doing these initiatives and we're putting out this technology and we're doing all these things to protect your identity, Addy, and your
Mhm.
colleagues' identities, and our patients have entrusted us with their most sensitive information, and we need to protect the privacy of your information, your colleagues, your patients, et cetera, et cetera. Now people get it because it's framed in a way that's deeply personal to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think it's connected because they don't see a real gap? Then, like, this is our home and this is our work, and it's all merging together. For us, it's like it's the same environment. So, what is the difference?
Yeah, you're absolutely on the right track there. So because people are working at home, there is this really interesting mix happening between personal devices and work devices. So most people, if you look at their home office environment, they've probably got two or three or four devices going on, maybe a company laptop, a personal laptop, a tablet, a smartphone, or maybe two.
Yeah.
And then people don't really see a clear line between what's work and what's personal. And we found that people are doing a lot of their work on personal devices, and they're doing